Welcome in, the NFL Live crew, Dan Graziano, Tim Hasselbeck, Mike Tannenbaum. I'm Susie Kalber. So we know during the draft, big trade, Josh Rosen went to the Dolphins. How do you think that impacts them?
Well, I think it gives them an option going forward at quarterback for the future that they didn't have, right? I mean, they got him at very low cost. They traded a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick. The details of the trade. They got him for very little. He doesn't have to succeed there. They only owe him a total of $6 million over the next 3 years. If he does, then they've got their quarterback of the future. If he doesn't, then they can go ahead and look in next year's draft. But it gives them something to look at this year.
I absolutely love it. I think it, in many ways, was an absolute no-brainer move for the Miami Dolphins. Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't going to be a long-term answer, may not even be a year-long answer for them. He wasn't even getting paid like a starter. You mentioned the compensation in terms of what they had to give up to get him and what they'll have to pay him.
Yeah.
A year ago, he was in the discussion to be the #1 overall pick. And all he did between that point and now was play a little bit for the Arizona Cardinals and had some good tape and some bad tape. But we've seen good tape in the NFL from him. I think he can make them competitive, and I think that he may be the long-term answer for them.
Yeah, I agree. The only grade he gets from last year is a grade of incomplete. And with that said, he went on the road and beat the Green Bay Packers, which is hard to do. So I agree. The risk-reward makes a lot of sense. You have cost certainty for 4 years, and he has a really high upside. So it was a low second-round pick that they traded, and if it works out, they'll look back and then say, hey, that's really good value. I was surprised that Arizona didn't keep him. You know, he got drafted by a defensive coach and Steve Wilks, a little bit like Jared Goff getting drafted by Jeff Fisher. Sean McVay comes in, Jared Goff gets better. Cliff Kingsbury replaces Steve Wilks. Wouldn't you like to see how that looks for a year? You get a front seven pressure player for Arizona, but instead, they gave up on him, and I think Rosen has really an intriguing upside, so we'll see how it works out.
What do you think realistic expectations are for the Dolphins this season?
You know, Susie, if he plays well, there's still a number of playmakers. You know, they have two good running backs in Kenyon Drake, Kalen Ballage, Jakeem Grant, Kenny Stills at receiver, Devontae Parker. So there's skill players there. If Rosen plays well, they're going to be a competitive team.
Quarterbacks can fix a lot, too, you know, in terms of that. And you're right. It's not like it's a completely depleted roster. Then,
Thanks,
right?
Tim.
Yeah. You know
Who brought all those guys in anyway?
Listen, the truth is, they do have good runners. Their receivers are, I think, better than advertised. And so I think when you look at that, a quarterback can make a lot of things better if a guy up front struggles, if he gets rid of the ball on time. I mean, Peyton Manning didn't get sacked a lot, not because he always had the best offensive line, but because he knew how to play the position. So part of what happens is if that guy in that position can play well, then all of a sudden it lifts everybody else up. And so I think with that, I think they end up being more competitive.
It'll be interesting. It's a season of change there, obviously. You know, changes in the front office, changes on the coaching staff, changes at quarterback, and you wonder how much of the first year of a new staff and a new coach evaluates, here's what we have, here's what works with our plan, here's what doesn't, and then makes more changes next offseason, right? So it could be an evaluation year for them as well.
What an interesting dynamic in the AFC East. You have Tom Brady and then draw a line, right? And you go back to last year's draft, and all three of those guys, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and now Josh Rosen are all there. They were all picked, 8 picks apart, all three of them, and now they're on the AFC East with some guy named Tom Brady.
Who knows him better than Brian Flores?
That's right. That's exactly right. It'll be interesting to see Miami's defense against New England's offense.
Yep, we'll keep our eye on the Dolphins as well as all 32 teams in the NFL on NFL Live, weekdays 1:30 p.m. Eastern.